It's the afternoon of day 13 after an unexpected interruption at the courthouse due to a bomb threat. We have seen this before in other high profile cases, particularly other high profile cases that are streaming. We also saw a very interesting update from Forge, real Forge, not fake Forge. And that is quite something. It looks like the lawyers are heading back inside the courthouse and everybody is heading back. So we assume that court will resume again shortly. The court had taken the lunch break a little bit early until 2:30. So we are going to go ahead and do that now. So with that, court will be back in just a few minutes. I'm sure we are monitoring that. I'm going to roll the intro. We're going to talk about what happened. I just want to make sure that we get that done before court comes back. And then we'll talk about that Forge statement again and the Carlton County statement regarding the threat this morning. All right, let's go. We've got, I don't know, maybe another long slogging afternoon or maybe something. Who knows? We don't even know in this trial. It's like, oh, we're going to learn something new. Maybe. Maybe not. Hey there, I'm Emily D. Baker, the internet's go-to legal analyst, breaking down the legal side of the pop culture and entertainment stories we can't stop talking about. I'm a big fan of the cursey words. I've been a licensed attorney for over 17 years, but this is not legal advice. This is where the law nerds unite to talk about facts, not... Let's get into it. Right. As always, I am monitoring the feeds to see when court comes back and, of course, not doing it well. Do we have our screen shared yet, Emily? No, we're professionals here. Why would we do that? We're just, we've just been streaming trials. Well, for a year now or more. No, about a year. I think that's about fair. Depp v. Heard is the first trial I streamed on this channel. So I'm just keeping an eye on court so we know what's going on. We're going to share the updates from Carlton County, and we're going to share the updates from Forge. So let me go ahead and share that now. Share screen, share screen. All right, look, that was a sound effect. It totally worked. It totally worked. It totally worked. I mean, maybe. All right, coming from Chanley Painter, correspondent for Court TV, SLED statement. A bomb threat was received by Carlton County Courthouse personnel. The building has been evacuated by SLED, along with the Carlton County Sheriff's Office. The building has been evacuated and, sorry, there was the word that I was missing, and SLED, along with the Carlton County Sheriff's Office, are investigating the threat. No additional information is available from SLED at this time. This happened during the Brooks trial as well, if you'll remember. And then we have the statement from, where is it? I saw it shared here too. The statement from Forge. Oh, maybe I don't see it here. I'll go grab it. The statement from Forge regarding their suit or pursuit of suit from or with Bank of America. Security is letting everyone back inside the courthouse now. Threat has been cleared. So we didn't see too much stress and anxiety around the courthouse. We know that the jury was taken out securely. I'm not surprised by that. And I'm going to go pull that statement up again from Liz Farrell. And I'm not surprised that they have it. I'm surprised others haven't shared it more, though. I know Liz Farrell have it, and I know that Avery had it as well. So let us go to that. Where is it? It got buried by all the other stuff. So we've got the SLED statement. Let's see. Here is the Forge statement. All right, let's talk about the Forge statement. This is Forge Consulting has been in business for over 20 years, building our reputation and professionalism. I want to make sure that court is not back. No, it's not. I don't know what happened that horrible night in Islandton when Maggie and Paul Murdaugh were murdered, but I do know that Alec Murdaugh used our good name to defraud his clients, his law firm, and countless others. I know the Bank of America could have stopped it all there with a single phone call to verify the truth. Unfortunately, that call was never made. I wonder how much tragedy could have been avoided if it was. So that is most of, and we went through the entire thing this afternoon, that is most of the statement from Forge that they are going to be pursuing legal action against Bank of America. We also have the text of Alec Murdaugh over on Avery's Twitter. Avery Wilkes is a local reporter who's been covering this case for quite a while. Hey, it's Alec. I'm finally feeling a little better each day. I'm over the worst, but still feel like I have the flu, real weak. I have been worried about y'all, and I'm sorry I didn't get to tell y'all myself. I know both of you have been hurt badly by me. Interesting, because he said when he called 911, my wife and child have been hurt badly. It seems to be a phrase he uses more commonly because that's exactly what he said in 911. My wife and child have been hurt badly. I know that both of you have been hurt badly by me. I know it sounds hollow, but I am truly sorry. The better I get, the more guilt I have. I have an awful lot to try to make right when I get out of here. The worst part is knowing I did the most damage to those I love most. And that is going to be the defense or the prosecution statement. That is going to be really what they should be focusing on. Whether they will or not is another question, to be fair. But the worst part is knowing I did the most damage to those I love the most. And then they're going to be able to talk about whether or not he means the murderers. But the defense is going to have to argue against it. And the defense is going to have to argue what he meant was the theft. He's talking about the theft. He's not talking about the rest of it. So the worst part is knowing I did the most damage to those I love the most. I'm not real sure how I let myself get where I did. I am committed to getting better and hope to mend as many relationships as I can. They're paying back what you stole, man. You both are special people and important to me. Please know how sorry I am to have made you part of my misdeeds. And that's similar to what he said with Chris Wilson as well. I hope you are doing as well as possible. Love you very much. Please tell Cheryl and Haley hello, and I'm very sorry. All my love. Here's what wasn't read in court. Spelling. Who are Cheryl and Haley? And why doesn't he know how to spell anybody's names? It's because it's surface. He's paying enough attention to be surface. And that's what it is. So Honey asked, want to take a poll. The evidence is not closed, so I'm not asking the chat to vote. I tend to not ask the chat to vote guilty, not guilty. We're not the jury, and we don't have all the evidence in yet. So thank you. I will poll on who's going to be the next witness, or what job do we think Mr. Forge should have next? Should he be chopping wood on TikTok? These types of things. But I tend to not do polls on guilt versus not guilt, especially not at the close of evidence. So I appreciate the ask. That's why I don't. I know others do. It's just with the law nerds, I'm just, we're not there yet. We're not, and I couldn't vote if I had to vote today. Really, the evidence isn't closed. If we had to vote today, legally, we all have to vote not guilty. So legally speaking, all of us would be in not guilty. We haven't had the full presentation of the evidence. So what I will take polls on later is how long it'll take the jury to come back. How long deliberations will go, that kind of stuff. So that's really where it is. I think it's too early for any of us to tell. And I think if we're going to take a vote on anything, do y'all have answers or do y'all have questions? Because all I've got right now is questions. All I have in this case is questions. The only answers I have is that he stole money using fake Forge. The rest of it is just questions. So many questions. I would take a poll on, have you watched the latest episode of The Emily Show yet? Yes, that's my podcast. Yes, I'm going to promote it. I put it up on YouTube. It's live on your favorite podcasting app. That I would ask. But I've got my I Have Questions shirt on today because I haven't gotten out of I've Got Questions. I have so many questions and not that many answers. And in that position, we need some answers, but we're not getting them yet. Maybe they'll be answered. What was the secret conversation? Was the secret conversation really just that Alex said I never went to the kettles? Because we knew that from other witnesses. Is that all? Or is the Brotherhood still being protected? I don't know. Because once we saw the witness I really liked yesterday, Crosby, Cosby. The witness we saw yesterday, Ronnie, was very emotional, was clearly conflicted. It was kind of heart-wrenching testimony. And with it being heart-wrenching testimony, I felt for him. But once we got into him starting to run investigation and being really friendly with Jim, like, look, Jim, I was like, oh, that's right, I forgot. Y'all are still part of the Brotherhood. It's Jeannie Seckinger and it's Alexandria that aren't part of the Brotherhood. And it's Shelley Smith who's not part of the Brotherhood. And I can't put that part of the case aside, because that's what I see most clearly now, is that everyone in the Brotherhood underestimated the women around them and what they would say and whether they would question anyone. That's really my takeaway at this point. They didn't think that anyone would speak against them, and they underestimated it. And it was clear that the legal secretary, and I think she's probably a legal secretary, not a paralegal, but potato, potato. The legal secretary who testified this morning was clearly conflicted and afraid. Annette, you're right, Annette, clearly conflicted and afraid. Clearly knew she lost her husband to a heart attack young. She is a single mom. She is working at the firm, like they're the Royals, working at the firm, which from everything I've heard from those local is one of the most profitable businesses in the area, is like the premier job. So she's working at the firm. She has the job. She is a single mom who lost her husband young. And then her family is Mallory Beach, who Paul Murdaugh was standing or getting ready to stand trial for killing in a boating under the influence case. How conflicted she must have been, how scared she must have been, and how difficult that decision was, because she knew. She pushed the red flags aside quite a lot, and she said they were yellow flags, there were yellow flags, there were yellow flags. And she pushed them aside and pushed them aside and pushed them aside until the check came fluttering down in her face, where she could not do anything but take it to Jeannie Seckinger and literally say, what the fuck? And then Jeannie went to the partner that she clearly trusted and said, we have to protect Annette in this, and we have to do something. And she stood up to Alec, and you heard her say, he glared at me and said, what do you want now? And haven't we been there? Haven't we been there? Chat, I know you've been there. What do you want now? What I want to know, as Jeannie Seckinger testified, is where the receipts are. And that's what she was asking for. Where are the receipts? So this is a difficult trial, but that's all the financial stuff. But it shows the dynamics, it shows the power, and it shows that the lies were covered up for. And it shows that he thought the lies were covered up for. The prosecution hasn't made that clear. This is what I think. This is my opinion on this case. Alec thought he was above the law. He thought that no one would call him out. He thought that no one would call him on his shit. Does that mean that he pulled the trigger that night, or does it mean that he was complicit? I don't know yet. But what it does mean is he thought with all the firm stuff, and this might cut to the defense with all the firm stuff, he thought if he could pay it back, it would be all good. I think Chris Wilson's testimony will be powerful there, saying, I was going to report him to law enforcement. And Cosby said that too. When I found out, I was reporting him to law enforcement. But the thread was getting pulled by the women that worked at the firm, who I don't think Alec ever thought would come and testify against him. I don't think he ever thought that they would. I don't think he thought the Brotherhood would, but I think the Brotherhood also has to cover its own ass. And they have to. Court is delayed due to a medical emergency with a member of the public. Delightful. We're going to get to chat more. I'll answer a bunch of questions, and we're just going to sit here and look at, well, this lovely seal from the great state of South Carolina. That's not true. There's probably more. No, this is something in addition to the bomb threat. And it's going to get the conspiracies rolling And I don't want to get the conspiracies rolling, but it's going to get the conspiracies rolling. Delay, 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 delay. So local reporter, this is retweeted by Mandy Matney. Just had what I believe is a member of the public collapse while waiting to get back inside the courthouse. No word on a clear, but some prosecutors and attorneys have been allowed back in. Medical personality on the way, medical personnel on the way. That might not delay it too much, but it's a very interesting thing. Murdaugh's defense team has re-entered the courthouse. Spectators have begun to form a line outside the courthouse, though they have not been allowed back inside. We expect court to resume soon, though no start time has been given. This was about 10 minutes ago. Look, if they were expecting Cousin Eddie's testimony today and all of these shenanigans are happening, I have a lot of questions. It's funny. Here, let's go to, because I trust that at this point, the jury is where they're supposed to be. Let me go take a look real quick and see the feed outside the courtroom. And just take a look at that, because we're not back in court yet. It looks like emergency personnel is on the scene from the Fitz News feed. So we'll just, milling around the courthouse is where we're at. And I'm just going to keep the volume down here so it doesn't scare me if it ever does come back on. But that's where we're at with people trying to get back inside the courtroom. Emily, it had to be on the day you needed to make a flight. It's always on the day I need to make a flight. If anything is certain in the world, it is always, always on the day when I am getting on a plane. There was one flight, and this is a very brief story, and then we'll get back to answering questions. There was one flight where I had Delta One just on a fluke. It was a complete fluke. And Delta One is their like lay down international seats. Very schmance. Definitely not me. Very schmance. I was so excited about my flight to Vegas on Delta One. And it's because it was a connecting flight internationally and then going to Vegas. And I was so ready. I have never in my life, and my mom was a flight attendant. So I have flown, well, this was back before the days of like mileages and stuff. So people weren't getting upgraded the same way. So we used to fly standby. And sometimes I would get to fly first class on standby. And I loved it. It was thrilling when I got to fly standby first class because my mom had so much seniority as a flight attendant. But that's beside the point. I had the fancy schmancy seats. And I was so damn excited about my fancy schmancy seat. And as I am getting onto the plane, my phone begins to blow up because James Spears had not filed, but leaked before filing a wild motion in the Britney Spears conservatorship. And it was getting sent to me by those that I have connections with in the media. And I was like, Mother of God. And everything, as I am walking onto the plane, everything was just like, boom. I was so annoyed. I was like, but then I was like, okay, well, I've got a flight to read it. But instead of like settling into a movie and a glass of champagne in my reclining seat, I was settling into reading my iPad, also with a glass of champagne. It just. So James Spears had leaked a motion that hadn't been filed yet. So it wasn't on the court website yet, but all of the media had it. So I was reading through that. It was just wild. We're seeing that Alec has pulled back up. They're still waiting until they start letting the spectators in. We're not going to get anything. So we'll know. Question: what is the secret conversation that Crosby was possibly going to testify to yesterday and didn't? No one knows. It's a secret. Could it have just been that Alec told him he was never at the kennels? It could be that simple, but they never tied it back to that date. And the only reason we know this is because we were looking at because we had been privy to the hearing on, or a few days prior, the 404 hearing. And in the 404 hearing, he said that was a hearing on 6/10. So so that's where we're at. I'm trying to make sure my flight hasn't, well, we'll check on whether my flight's been delayed or not. What's being delayed right now is court. So I don't know. Could it just be that Alex said he never went to the kennels? It could just be that. So it looks like they haven't let everybody into court yet. And we will see. They could call Crosby back to the stand. They could. They could recall Crosby. And they've let the court know several times that they might do that depending on the circumstance that they might recall. It looks like they're starting to let people, and you saw everybody kind of shuffle in line. So it looks like they might be starting to let people back into the courtroom. I see law enforcement saying things like, make a line. So we will see. All right. Let me go and check and see if we have any more word from the those on the street with the tweet, and then we will go from there. Let's see. Security is letting everybody back inside the courthouse now. All right, that's what we're seeing, and that's consistent with what we're seeing. So, yeah, let's just keep going. We're going to answer questions and wait for court to resume. That's what we're going. So you guys, I know there are others at court. I am just going to try to get through questions. Thank you. I know. Camille Vasquez, rando fan, said, old white guys can't find the podium. Jim, objections. Dick, where'd you go? Vinny, evidence. Creighton, tie it together. Go in order. Elaine, stop yelling. Bring me a Ben, Camille, anyone. Even Binger. Oh, that's a strong statement when you get to even Binger. But it was, you understood. I didn't agree with Binger's theory of the case, but you understood what the theory of the case was. I mean, at least there was that. Thought Money AM would inherit from Handsome's death. We've heard nothing about it, but if I'm on this jury, I am wondering why, when his father is in hospice with what we've heard is days to live, why would he then decide that he needed to kill his wife and kid for sympathy? Clearly, he was going to get sympathy over the death of his father. So I don't know. They haven't talked about it, but doesn't it leave questions? It just leaves questions in your mind. Do you think Cousin Eddie's testimony sparked this? I don't know, but look, I don't know, but I have questions. I have heard rumblings that he was supposed to testify today. I don't think there's any way he's going to testify today. There's no time. But I have questions. Because it's all very strange. Emily and chat. What's the two guns theory ever confirmed? Could it be two different types of ammo, but same gun? No, it's two guns. It's definitely two guns. There is definitely two guns. There is a shotgun and a rifle. Those couldn't be two types of ammo in the same gun. Not possible. There are two guns. Whether they are two guns, one person, or two guns, two people, I don't know. And if the defense argues two shooters, could the jury come back and be like, yeah, and Alec is one of them? Could that happen? Maybe. And he sent somebody else out with all the stuff that the police didn't go find. I don't know, maybe. So this looks like people are being let back into court now. So that's where we're at with this. And that's where we're at. It looks like they're letting people back into court. So let's see. Cousin Eddie, the second one. I mean, right? So many Cousin Eddies. But no, Cousin Eddie is also charged in the roadside incident. Cousin Eddie was the one who either was hired to shoot Alec Murdaugh or was struggling with the gun. But I don't think the prosecution can or should put Cousin Eddie on until we get to the evidence from Palmetto State Bank. Knowing how much money was going to Cousin Eddie from Alec is important before Cousin Eddie testifies to me. I want to see that. So we have to get through at least whatever forensic expert is going to testify who was just on the stand. And we have to get to the Palmetto State Bank employee. And that only makes sense if we also get to Chris Wilson. But who am I to say what order of witnesses makes logical sense? Connie said, can we all pitch in and pay to change your ticket to later? I am on the latest flight I can be, unfortunately. So thank you. I appreciate it, but y'all don't need to pitch in for anything. I'm good. We're good. Did this case go to the grand jury? Yes, it did. Everything has gone to the grand jury. That grand jury's been sitting for like 6 months. And I don't know if it's one grand jury or multiple. It's the state grand jury, but these are all charged in multiple counties. So I have a question on that. I suspect, chat, I do not know for sure. I suspect It's the same grand jury for all of these indictments. So they have a lot of information. Well, my in-ears got stuck in my chair. And then they were like, strangling my head. Hello from Prague, EDB. How are you on this lovely palm-free day? I am ready for them to start so I can finish eating my lunch while we watch testimony. I'm ready for them to start. They've been very delayed, and the judge is not going to love it, but I don't think he'll run late today. It's been a lot of a day for the jury, and if I were him, I wouldn't run late. I wouldn't run late at all. Question, can the jury be told that AM is charged with the financial crimes so that they know? They already did? The defense already got that in. So yes, the jury has been told through the defense. The defense got it in through the witnesses. They know that he will be held responsible for those. So they don't have to hold him responsible in this case for those. That got made clear. The prosecution didn't make it clear. The defense made it clear. And I actually think it saves the prosecution's butt a little bit if he's convicted on this. When will Elvis be called to the stand? Hopefully tomorrow, Matt Bond. I think tomorrow's a good day for that. Your channel feels like an old friendship. Thank you, Thrifting My Best Life. That's how I feel too. Like little jokes we have between us, exhibities, and other uses for your throat. I love it. We definitely have a lot of inside jokes. We always let the law nerds who are just finding us know what those inside jokes are, except maybe Linda's clam. I feel like Linda's clam that's on the floor takes a lot of explanation, but it's fine. What's your number one burning question? What is my number one burning question in this case? I guess, did Alec do it and will the state prove it? But I want to know more about the GPS locations on the phone. We don't have a lot on that. And why? I guess my burning question is, why the fuck did the prosecution think this was an okay case to do without demonstrative exhibities? It's so confusing. Why did they choose that? That's what I want to know. My evidentiary questions are what I laid out before, but my burning question is, why did the prosecution choose to do it this way? I have a lot of questions. And also I prepped a lot of cases. I was a prosecutor. I have a lot of questions about that. So why are they doing it? Why are you doing it like this? Why? Why do you think cross-examining your witness and redirect is proper? Why? Those are my burning questions. Defense hasn't given explanation to why Alec is there minutes before the murders. Do you think Alec changes his story in third police interview? I sure want to hear the third police interview, but I don't think, and again, my opinion, I don't think Alec knew about the Snapchat video until well into this investigation. I don't think he knew at all. And I don't think investigators knew about the Snapchat video until well into this investigation. I don't think, because it took them a while to crack Paul's phone. So when we get to Alec's third interview, I'll want to go back and look at the date that they cracked Paul's phone and the date of the third interview, but I don't think he knew about that. If everyone is afraid of the Murdaughs, then who is Alec Murdaugh afraid of? Worth pondering. It is worth pondering. And I think that's a fair point too. I am here to learn, where is the money? Yep. I also want to know where the money is. Follow the money, but I don't think we're going to get to follow the money much until the fraud case. If the fraud case goes to trial and is not a federal case, which we'll see if the feds swoop in and try to take it by lumping it together and making it a federal case, because right now it's 99 fucking separate indictments. It's wild. But if it is streamed, we'll cover the fraud case. At least we know it'll be more linear. The thing about the boys club, if you're not allowed in the club, you don't have to abide by the rules. Tamra, this is my new life motto. I'm embracing it because, female attorneys sometimes try to wedge themselves into that. And I said, fuck that a number of years back. But if you're not in the club, you don't have to abide by the rules. Can we all just embrace this as our life philosophy? Because a lot of us are the folks that weren't in the club. And I'm just, that's it. If you're not in the club, you don't have to abide by the rules. Tamara, life advice with Tamara in the chat. Thank you so much for not just being a law nerd, but for that, not just word of wisdom, but encouragement. Chat is like, yes. Is court going back? Yes, it is. It looks like the last of the line is going in right now, which I've been monitoring. So I think we'll get underway shortly. The judge will probably put things, put things on the record. Being underestimated is my favorite. Isn't it fun? I mean, I think a lot of you in the chat know exactly what it's like to be underestimated, and you're like, go ahead. This will be delightful. This will be delightful. All of this makes me worry about what the boys are all covering for each other until it came down to their own money. Same. I don't know if we'll ever know. Kimberly said, coming from a male-dominated dealership, I imagine, with good old boys and me as a female manager, I get chills and flashbacks listening to this. Yeah, I mean, there are things in the behavior of these attorneys that I try to be very mindful of that trigger working with those attorneys. It's like, bro, it doesn't matter if you're in South Carolina or Southern California. I have worked with you and versions of you, and sometimes I'm tired. And sometimes I'm tired. Often I'm tired. So there are times where I'm just like, oh, be better than average. What is his alibi that doesn't tie to the murders? That he wasn't at the kennels and that he asked Shelley Smith, the caregiver, to say he was there 30 to 40 minutes. And those things. Also, if he's clearly not napping, they're trying to establish, this is a great question. Lara, thank you for asking this to allow me to explain myself better. If he is always on his phone, and in fact, sometime like fucking double fisting phones, always frenetically on his phone. Also, I've got questions about the length of his addiction, if he is rolling with that frenetic energy like all the time. But if he is double fisting phone calls and always on the phone and walking out of depositions, like, God, the audacity, but walking out of depositions because he's on the phone, taking phone calls in the middle of partner meetings with his law partners. If he's doing all of that, then his phone being off during the time that the state says the murders were committed is sus. Highly sus. And that video putting him at the kennels at 8:44 makes the time period that his phone is not receiving data, like 8 p.m. to 9:02-ish p.m., very, very sus. Because it's not turned off because he's sleeping, because he's not a fucking sleep. So that timing to me is sus. But does it mean he knew this was happening? Or does it mean that he did it? His dad is dying. They are in these family, and the state did not do a great job, I don't think, or maybe it was just my annoyance with it. The state is going through the group texts with, Maggie and with Paul about who's going to visit dad. When are they going to visit dad? Alec tells people he's worried about his mom, and he's asked Maggie to come back to Moselle because she goes to a doctor's appointment and asks her to come back to Moselle, not the beach house, because he wants to go see his dad. And then he ends up going to see his mom. But there's a lot of that. So they are building the, why is the phone off? Why is the phone off? Why does he say he's never at the kennels? Why does he say he turned over Paul's body, yet he has no blood or GSR on him anyway? Why is he so clean if he is there with his killed family? Why is he so clean? And if he's not sleeping and the murders happened and the phones go silent 3 minutes later, why does he not see someone fleeing, driving away, running? Why does he not call police immediately at that time? Why? That's the part of the alibi that doesn't make sense. That timing. But that timing is so fucking lost in the weeds of whether he was lying to his law partners and stealing from his clients that it's hard to tie it back together. Because even when you ask me, what is the part of the alibi? What is the part of the alibi? It takes me a minute to tie it all back together. He called Shelley to let him into the house. He did. Why doesn't he have a key? No one asked if he had a key to his parents' house. No one ever asked. So why did he call Shelley? Was it to manufacture an alibi? Or is it because it doesn't have a key to his parents' house? But he's so close to his parents. He visits more than any other sibling. They elicited that. So why? Oh, the judge is back on the bench. The judge is back. The judge is back. The judge is back. Tell us what happened, Your Honor. Make it all make sense. Make it make sense. This is the only person in this trial that I rely on, and I think the jury will too, because Judge Newman has been kind of a steadfast constant. And he's not flapped by any of this. We're all just like, "Wah!" And Judge Newman's like, bring the jury. Another day, making the sausage. He's got to be so annoyed. This case was supposed to be over on Friday. This case was supposed to be over on Friday.
Okay.
It's just not a fucking chance. I will switch feeds once we bring the jury.
You may bring the jury.
Oh, he's not saying anything. All right, we're going to bring the jury. Let me mute this and switch here. All right, they're going to bring the jury. Once people start talking, I will move those closed captions up. I think we can hear pretty well. Alex still has all of his folders in his hands. Interesting. The chat said before lunch he was packing his stuff up before, which is interesting. Chat, I love you guys sharing your experiences. It again, that's why we're all here together. There was a bomb threat at the Brooks trials. Boys Club equals how both defense and prosecution questioned Miss Shelley, caregiver, and the GSR witness versus how they questioned Crosby, partner from the firm. Yep. Snapchat, you can hear Paul say, Dad, it's all right, Dad. I didn't hear that. The kennel video with AM's voice is all they needed. Then they shouldn't get lost in the fucking weeds because it makes their case seem weak.
The jury is present, sir.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We're now ready to proceed, and counsel, you may proceed.
All right, we are back at
Hudak.
3 o'clock.
Before we got interrupted there, I think you're explaining your duties. Let's just start there again. What
Sure.
are your duties at SLED, sir?
In computer crimes, I'm responsible for examining digital evidence.
This
be it
is
cell
Agent
phones,
Hudak.
computers, vehicle infotainment systems. I also respond to network intrusion incidents, and I'm the evidence custodian.
Okay.
Why are you here today?
In the course of your duties at SLED, did you have occasion to come into contact with a 2021 Chevrolet
All right,
Suburban that
oh,
was driven by the defendant on the night of the murders?
this
yes,
I'm
I
really
did.
interested in.
Okay. And what
But why
what
is
was your
this so out of
role,
order?
with that vehicle? What did you do with
Ooh.
that vehicle?
I was
Car.
contacted about potentially removing the infotainment system for examination. However, it was unsupported by the tool I use. So I was asked to still remove said infotainment and OnStar systems to be sent off for the examination.
Did somebody
I'm
else
gonna show you
examine
what's been
it?
marked as State's Exhibit 444.
Is this just
That
foundation?
document, sir?
Yes, that's a SLED property receipt that I filled out with the information for the infotainment module and
This
the
might
OnStar
just be
module.
foundation.
Is that the document you filled out when you removed that infotainment center?
Yes, it is.
And what else did you remove?
Infotainment module and an OnStar module.
And you just testified that SLED did not have any tools that gave you the ability to actually analyze those items. Is that correct?
Correct. The software I have access to, which as far as I know is basically the only software, it was unsupported by that at the time.
I think we might have
And
been
do you know if
clickbaited.
even today that software supports this particular vehicle?
I don't believe it is.
Okay. All right.
This is just going to be foundation because somebody else would have had to examine it. Great. Do you know who examined it? At least tell us that they're next.
I'm going to show you what's been marked for
This
ID
is chain of
only
custody.
at this point.
Good. I'm going to
Items
sandwich.
447 and 448.
Peanut butter. A terrible thing to eat when
See
streaming,
if you recognize
but
those
also the
items.
only thing I felt like eating today.
Yes, I do. It's the infotainment module and the OnStar module.
Okay. And are those the items that you removed from that 2021 Suburban?
Yes, they are.
Okay. I'm going to ask you let's start with the entertainment center. I believe there is a serial number printed on that.
This
Could
is-
you read
this
that
is
serial
establishing
number on
chain of
the
custody.
entertainment center
Somebody
to,
analyzed
into the
it.
record, please.
432-031-217-0000.
We'll know if they mark it for evidence and don't admit
And
it.
your exhibit 444,
Then we'll know.
444, which is your paperwork you filled out and removed it. Did you write that serial number on that paperwork?
Yes, I did.
All right. And you don't have to read it out loud again, but can you compare the serial number for the infotainment center on your property sheet with the serial number on that box and tell me if they match?
But they do.
All right. And then what's the other item, 447, what is that?
The LG OnStar module.
Okay, and does that have a serial number somewhere on it?
And that's where we're at
It
today.
does, but I cannot read it in the bag.
Would you be able to do anything to help you read it? Is that, if we open it up, would it make it
Yeah,
easier?
if I could remove it.
All right, do you have a
Yeah,
knife on you that you
I
can
do.
open it up?
When we get to this testimony, it is going to be very interesting to see exactly what the
It looks
car
like
did,
you're
where
doing
it went.
something else there. Just
It
for my-
appears to be a Federal Bureau of Investigation evidence tape. That's actually right over the serial number, and letters in federal are preventing me from reading it. So
Is it able?
I
can you peel it up a little
don't-
bit?
Did the car slow down? Did the car slow down unexpectedly on that country
does
road
not
when
appear
Maggie's
that's
phone
coming
get
up.
yeeted
All right,
out?
could you read?
Did the car slow?
Excuse me, on your property receipt. could you
When
read
did
the
it
serial
leave?
number
When did it
on
stop?
your
When did
property
it crank
receipt?
on?
yes, it is 009 Victor India Echo Yankee 519052.
Are we going to get the
Best
FBI
of
agent
knowledge,
in?
The unit you're holding, that exact unit you took out of that vehicle.
Yes, and for the letters and numbers of the serial number, I can
I
see
don't know
what
if it
I
had
can
remote
see
start,
does
but they
match
should
up.
tell us
All right.
if it did.
All right, at this time, say we move
Oh.
to introduce exhibit, the property receipt.
Will you, G?
446.
That makes perfect sense. They are drawing names out of a hat.
It's admitted.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Why is Alec
All right,
Murdaugh
now I'm
lawyering
gonna
in his
show
own
you-
murder trial?
What's been marked as
A, I think it's probably a stress mechanism
exhibit
or coping mechanism.
445,
And B,
445.
I think he's used to being in control, don't you?
Let me see if you just recognize that document.
Yes, I do.
All right. And is that document that you personally prepared?
No, it's not.
All right, but is that another property receipt?
Yes, it is.
And are those records that SLEG, property receipts, are those records SLEG keeps in normal course of business?
Yes.
Okay. And do you recognize the?
Oh, no, the
name and signature of
thermostat's
who
been
did
back
prepare
there the
that-
whole time.
that receipt?
Yes.
This is zoomed out because this witness is
Lieutenant Britt Duff.
Okay.
much
And
taller.
what does that property receipt represent?
It appears to be representing that GM infotainment module and the LG OnStar module, changing custody for the purpose of providing to the FBI for examination.
And do you know how those two things were sent to the FBI?
I do not.
All right.
The FBI.
And the serial number,
Oh,
the GM infotainment serial number. You don't have to read it again, but could you compare that to the serial number?
it's happened a
on
lot
the-
that they've just pulled out knives in court.
on the
That
infotainment
has
system.
happened multiple times, but they're law enforcement. They're allowed to. This witness is much
They
taller,
match.
and that's why you can see
and
the
then I know you couldn't read the
thermostat
full
better.
serial number on the OnStar.
rule
but
of
the
court number
letters
one.
that you can see, can you compare those with the serial number on the?
Law enforcement's
second
also allowed to bring guns into the courthouse, depending on the courthouse,
For the
depending
ones
on
I
the
can see, they
courthouse.
do match.
So that's why they have knives.
And at this time, I'm going to move to introduce exhibit 445.
The car is going to tell on him. We'll see what it says.
Without objection.
I just want to know if it slows down and throws the phone.
All right.
That's what I want to know.
And at this time, I'm just going to move that items
Marked?
447 and 448 be marked for ID only at this point.
You don't have to move for them to be modified.
They're just
Yes,
marked,
sir.
counsel.
We're just going to mark them for ID
Yep.
only at this
You
point.
just do it. The mark for ID is because the defense and prosecution
defense.
agreed. Good.
Thank you, sir.
No questions. The defense and prosecution agreed
Next witness.
that the evidence would not. I didn't hear that at all because the audio cut, not because I was talking, but also the prosecution and defense agreed that they would not admit the evidence into evidence until the person who examined it, tested it, did the final thing with it, testified. So hopefully this is the person who did the final thing with it. I want to know about the car so badly. Tell me about the car. Give me a timeline.
Do you swear or affirm that any testimony you give today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I will.
If you would, please, sir, be seated. State your name and you'll spell your last name. Put in, please.
All right, so that was all foundation.
My name is Dwight Falkofske. Last name spelled Falkofske.
What up, Dwight?
Mr. Falkowski, how are you doing this afternoon?
Doing good.
All right. Where are you employed, sir?
I am employed with the FBI.
Great.
Okay. And what is your job title there?
I'm an electronics engineer.
Okay. And what unit of the FBI are you employed in?
The Electronic Device Analysis Unit.
Okay. And what does the electronic device analysis unit do at the FBI?
We collect data off of cell phones and other mobile devices, and in my case, vehicle systems, mobile
Great.
devices in general that can't be collected by commercial tools.
All right.
Great.
And so the FBI has a unit dedicated to extracting data off certain devices that is otherwise.
The FBI will know your whole
That
life.
is correct.
Okay. And you kind of mentioned it, but specifically, what is your role in the in
Chat.
this unit?
I serve a role as an automotive forensic specialist.
Okay. And what does that entail?
Calm down.
What does that mean?
Calm down,
So
chat.
I take a look at automotive systems and extract data off the memory components of those systems. And then from the images we get from those memory components, I will take a look at there, find the data that we're interested in finding, and we will create parsing tools that will pull out that data and take it from a computer format to a human readable format.
Let's explain that a little more. You said a parsing tool. What is that? Well, explain that to the jury what that is, please.
Okay, so a parsing tool is, in this case, a computer script that I'm writing or I have written that will go in and look at the collected binary image, the flash memory image that I've created, and go in and either create a file system
Oh,
or just
God.
go in
What was
raw in the
that?
binary and search for data that is of interest to us. This is data we've researched and found, and it'll take that data out of the system and again, put it into a human readable format, text or graphics or coordinate points so that we can understand it as humans.
In its most basic format, data is stored how?
In binary.
And what does binary mean?
Binary is just zeros and ones, what a computer reads.
Okay. And a parsing tool, if I understood you correctly, it helps you take that binary information and translate it into information that you can read and understand. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. All right. And have you, first of all, tell us a little bit about your background. What education and training have you had in this area?
I have a bachelor's of science degree in electrical engineering.
This will be interesting.
And if you'll give me one moment, I have my CV here and I'll list out training I've taken with the FBI.
The FBI, we help the robots talk to us. That's basically it. But he's like, so I talk to the engineers. So the engineers don't have to talk to the people. Engineers don't like to talk to people. But yes, he's going to tell us all about what the car says. And that's what I want to know. Hopefully
In
this is
August
clear.
2016, I took the Digital Evidence Management Systems training. That's to
They could
store data
object to
on
letting
our
him read it.
Electronic
Look at Jim.
evidence management system. In August 2016,
Jim might not have
completed
gotten much. Jim looks
digital evidence
grumpy.
handling. October 2016, legal ethics training. August 2017, CDART mentorship under FE. CDART mentorship is an internal designation for, at the time, I was working as a contractor to the FBI, and this training allowed contractors to handle evidence, and that was the extent of that training. Also in August 2017, completed the CDART proficiency testing, and I've also testified as an expert witness in September 2019.
Y'all are the
Okay.
best.
And what, do you recall, if not specifically,
That
but
wasn't
generally,
that
what
long,
you
sir.
qualify as an expert witness in 2019?
I don't recall the exact name they gave me for the expert witness, but I serve as, what I've told them, I serve as an electronics engineer, automotive forensics specialist.
Okay. And how would you best
Automotive
describe your
forensic
expertise
evidence
that you're gonna talk about
specialist.
today? How would you personally describe it?
I take a look at automotive systems and I go in there and find the data of interest. We'll go into the types of data.
GPS.
Would be things like connected devices, cell phones, thumb drives.
Ooh.
um,
Did Maggie's phone
Cell
connect?
phones
Did
that can
Maggie's
also
phone connect?
collect things
Did Maggie's phone
like,
connect?
call records and contact lists, also navigation data, locations of the vehicle. or
Vitamin, yes, that
destinations
was an
the
Office
user may
Space
enter the
reference.
system. I go find that data in these systems and I will write these parsing tools that I've mentioned
Yep.
to go ahead and pull those out. That's
So he creates his own tool.
So would automotive
he's
forensic
fucking
specialist be descriptive of what you do?
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, at this time, the state would move to enter Mr. Falkofske as an expert in the area of automotive forensic specialist.
No objection.
I want to
He's
know,
so
did the car
qualified.
slow down?
All right,
Where's the
thank
car? Did Maggie's phone connect to the car?
All right. So let's talk a little more about the mechanics of how you obtain this data and what you do. And just talking, not specifically in this case, but just kind of generally in your unit.
Okay.
What do you do? When you receive a device from a vehicle, first of all, what kind of devices do you receive?
Oh my God, not first of all, just ask the
There tend to
question.
be an infotainment center, which can be, basically the brains of the system that puts on some of these modern cars, that puts up the screen, it shows you music. If it's got navigation, it'll show navigation. It's the computer brain of that system.
Okay.
Also take a look at components such as the telematics box, which you'll hear about, like the OnStar module in this case.
Ooh,
And those will
OnStar.
tend to have connected device services and sometimes location data as well.
Okay.
Sometimes location.
And
Location.
generally speaking, how do you access the information stored on these devices?
First thing we do is what we call data extraction, and data extraction involves basically going in and finding the flash memory components on this computer,
Like
the
peanut butter on my
infotainment system
fingers.
or the telematics box, and we have different methods to extract that data. We have software methods, we have methods where we'll connect to the circuit board, or when sometimes we will just remove the chip and read it with a reader.
And let me stop you real quick. This jury has heard testimony about cell phone extractions and how cell phones are extracted. And you mentioned sometimes you can use a software method. How is that analogous to how cell phone data is normally obtained in an extraction?
Wendy said, my
If I
mom's
can
phone doesn't
compare it
connect in
to
my dad's
a
truck.
commercial tool like Celebrite,
My whole
software
family,
solution would be something you
all
could
of our phones
plug
connect
into
in
the
everybody's
system
cars.
while it's
So it
operating
just depends.
in order to get into the system
I'm
and
curious.
extract the data you need.
But some of these automotive devices are far more unique than an average cell phone,
Curious.
correct?
Yes.
And therefore, is there an off-the-shelf ready system that can access most vehicles? to your
No.
knowledge?
There is one commercial company called Burla
Mhm.
that does have a tool that is used in the field. However, we only accept the devices at EDAU
I don't know.
for
Requester's still
systems
there.
that there is no support for.
Okay. So you mentioned this company, Burla, which does produce a commercially available software that can extract data from some vehicles, correct?
Some vehicles, yes,
But it does not support the 2021 Chevrolet Suburban, correct?
that's correct.
All right. And that's how the device ended up with you, correct?
That's correct.
All right. So I kind of stopped you there. And if a software solution isn't available, like Burla, what are some of the other methods that you use to pull data off of some of these automotive systems?
I mentioned such as attaching wires to a circuit board and
He said he
extracting data
writes-
from the memory component.
he writes
Or
it
also
himself.
removing the chip from the board and putting it in a reader and reading the chip, the flash memory chip directly.
Okay. All right. And let's talk more about what you did in this case. When you attempted to access the data for the 2021 Suburban, did you encounter any problems?
Yes, we ran into our first instance of data being encrypted on a vehicle,
Okay. And that's not something you'd run into before?
not on vehicles.
Okay. And briefly, explain to the jury what you mean by encrypted, please.
So when a system encrypts the data, it takes basically a code word such as called a key and scrambles the data using that key so that it can't be written unless you have that key. And the key will, to read it back, you require the key to unlock the data and see it back in its regular form.
And you discovered this data on this Chevy Suburban was encrypted, correct?
That's correct.
I wonder if Alec is not quite sure what this witness is going
I'm
to
gonna show
say,
you, they've been marked for ID only.
or didn't
448
understand this
and
witness's,
447.
didn't
Let me take-
understand this
Take a look
witness's,
at them, see if you recognize them,
reports?
please.
and maybe isn't quite sure. So
This is the OnStar module that I processed.
I'm sorry that it's freezing on YouTube, y'all.
And this is the infotainment system that I processed for the
How do
Suburban.
you know those are the units you processed?
We have an FBI identifier tag on here.
If you're having
and my
issues, refresh
personal,
it.
Identifier
That's on YouTube's end.
symbols are on here.
And that's on both of those
Sorry,
devices?
y'all. That's a
both
chat
ones.
issue on YouTube's end.
At this time, state would move to
We know.
enter exhibits 447 and 448 into evidence.
No objection.
Yeah, all right, get it.
I know. I don't know what's going on with the chat. That is a YouTube issue.
All right, so let's talk about, you say when you initially tried to access the data on these, they were encrypted.
I'm sure it's not just us.
Can you tell us what the FBI did or what you did to ultimately allow you to be able to access the information?
Involved our greater team to develop a tool that would be able to reach into a live system on one of these vehicles and extract the encryption keys and remove get the encryption keys so then we could decrypt the data that we had collected.
Okay, and was that process ultimately successful?
Yes, it was.
And how long did that take?
We approximately 1 year.
All right.
What? It took a year? Maybe that's why they
All
didn't
right,
bring the indictments back.
And when you accessed this information and you finally had it decrypted, what types of information did you find? Let's start on the infotainment center. What types of information did you find on there?
He probably
So
thought
the
nobody would
infotainment
get into
center
the car.
contained,
Damn.
connected devices, phones that have been linked by Bluetooth.
It
or
took a
USB.
year to crack the car.
And associated with some of those devices were call logs and contact lists. And there was also a little bit of location data.
Okay. So you found some call logs, correct?
That's correct.
And how would that infotainment center get call logs? Explain that process. Why would they be on that center?
So a lot of cars that have Bluetooth connectivity will, when you connect the Bluetooth with them, sometimes they will ask you if you want to let the car connect to it or access your data on your phone. Sometimes it doesn't ask, but in most cases it'll ask you. And then at that point, it'll take things like call logs and pull them from the phone into the computer, the infotainment system.
Okay. All right, and you found some call logs on this infotainment center, right? Correct?
Yes,
You found some location data, correct?
that's correct.
Do you recall if you found any from the date of June 7th of 2021?
Yes, there was data from that date.
Location data?
Oh, location data, no. There's not call data.
What?
All right, you found some call data.
What?
You found some Bluetooth data. And what kind of Bluetooth data did you find for devices did you find?
It primarily the Bluetooth address of the connecting device.
Did it provide you any information of when a device may have been connected to the infotainment center?
No, there was no timestamps with that data.
Okay. All right, but there's another thing another type of data you found on this infotainment center, correct?
Yes, we additionally looked for vehicle information regarding the state of the vehicle.
Okay, explain to the jury, what does that mean?
So
Turning
what we were
on,
looking
stopping,
for on this car
driving,
was
black box
something to
stuff.
show if the car was moving, if doors were opened or closed, windows up and down. We searched for this type of data on this vehicle.
Okay. And did you find some of that data?
We did. We found what we call states of the vehicle. And in this case, it was more granular things such as, and one of the ones we're interested in looking at is the shift lever going in and out of park, kind of giving an indication.
And we'll talk more about that in a minute, but
Okay.
would you say
no
that there was a
location,
lot
no
of this
timestamps.
vehicle status data that was
Yes,
stored?
this vehicle stores a voluminous amount of data and some logs.
Well, then why don't you have it?
The majority of it really useful when you
No.
try to okay. And did you attempt to pare down the data you're looking at to find potentially useful information?
Yes, we combed through the data and we looked for data that matched our testing of a similar vehicle or identical type vehicle to be able to identify messages in this log that can be attributed to the vehicle states.
Let's talk about that. You mentioned it. You said testing. What do you mean by testing? What did you guys do to test this?
We obtained a identical 2021 Suburban vehicle with the same build out.
Okay.
And we drove it multiple times and extracted data from it multiple times in a series of tests designed to try to understand what is going on inside the system.
Okay. So this is simple testing. So you go out and drive it and you'd record, you knew when you're driving, so you could record times,
this
correct?
might
Record
be a
times,
mess.
locations, yes,
And then you could go back in
Why
and
didn't you
pull that
call
data off
OnStar?
of the infotainment center of the test vehicle, correct?
that's correct.
And then you can compare that to the logs that you guys wrote saying we did this at this time, correct?
That's correct.
And you could what could you do with that comparison? What did that help you with?
So that helped us identify in the logs laid out states, very granular states of.
When you
The
say
system.
granular, I apologize.
No!
to stop you, but,
Don't
I
stop
wanna
him.
make
Let
sure,
him finish the answer,
uh,
then ask.
we understand everything you're saying. When you say granular, what do you mean by that?
I'll explain a few of the states to give you an example.
Okay.
When the vehicle first, say you open the door and you see the screen turn on the car, that would be maybe one or two of the states that the system tells me it's waking up. A message saying it's waking up, then a message saying I'm showing my animation video on the screen as it starts to boot up. And then eventually, like if the car is being, and then other states of the car, such as the in and out of park, a lot of the states only mean something very small in the whole scheme of how the car is operating, a very specific little pieces of data.
Okay. And there's a lot of it, correct?
There's a lot of them.
He keeps saying little.
And so
there's a lot.
you
Did you
had to
miss
kind
something?
of figure out a way to kind of pare that
I
data
can hear
down
the
to
cross-examination
something
in my brain.
that's useful for you to interpret, correct?
That's correct.
All right. And how did you do that?
Initially, we wrote a utility into our parser that would go through, first of all, and select all the messages we found of interest that indicated some sort of state of the vehicle. And then we attempted to take that data and put meaning to it. And it was a challenging process, let's put it that way.
Okay. But ultimately, do you feel like, at least for certain types of events, you're able to draw some conclusions about what was going on with the vehicle at certain times?
Certain events were much more specific about certain of the things that were going on with the car.
Like?
And were clearer.
And when you were asked, the question of, is
Kay
can you
asked,
use
is
any of this
encryption
information to
typical?
determine when a vehicle
We
could
wanna
potentially be
know.
moving? Is that
I don't know.
something that you look for in this data?
We were looking for that data. We found something close to that data.
Okay. And in your testing and analysis, what did you determine would be the best indicator to you, looking at the data, of when the vehicle is moving?
The message indicating whether the car was in park or out of park.
Okay. And so you found a reliable indicator in your opinion, indicates the vehicle would likely or possibly be moving, correct?
That's correct.
Possibly?
Now,
If we're in a
all you
lot of
said was you
possiblies,
can-
we got
This
problems.
particular message says it's either in park or out of park, correct?
That's all it says.
And it doesn't necessarily say whether it's in drive, correct?
That's right. I don't know what gear it's in.
Okay. But you can tell when it's out of park.
Correct.
And can you tell from that whether the vehicle is actually physically moving?
I cannot.
He just said that.
I am. And at the end of this analysis, did you prepare data and a parser report to send to SLED at the end of your analysis?
Yes, I did.
Okay. I'm going to show you what's been marked as exhibit 443. I'm going to see if you recognize that.
Yes, this is a copy that I validated earlier today against the original
Okay.
evidence that was submitted.
So that contains the information you provided SLED, correct?
What
That's correct.
information?
Generally speaking, what is contained on this CD?
It is our unit's derivative evidence results of what was extracted and reported for both the OnStar module and the infotainment system, for both the OnStar
All
module.
right. And so this provides both, we said there's voluminous raw data that came out of this vehicle, correct?
Yes,
And it includes a full copy of that, right?
there is.
But also includes a report that kind of pares that down into more useful information to you, correct?
Yes,
And what did you call that report again? Was it the HTML report?
the format was in HTML, so you could open it with a browser.
And
Yes.
what tool did you use to help you prepare that condensed report?
That was the parsing tool that developed that.
And that's what you talked to about at the beginning of your testimony with the jury. And that's a way to use software to help pare down the data into something useful.
Correct.
Okay.
And the
At this
data
time,
says,
state would move to enter exhibit 443.
No objection.
Submitted.
the jury's never going to look at that if you don't give them a summary. They're never going to put that disc in anything. They don't want to see your HTML report. They're not going to understand it. The reason that the defendant looks so intent
I'll
is
show you
because
what's
he
been
doesn't
marked
understand it,
as
and he wants to know what this dude has to say.
449. And just describe what that
And
is.
so do I.
Jury,
Is that a
please.
summary? Oh, sweet Jesus. Let it be a summary. Please.
Okay, this is a spreadsheet that basically shows many of the states of the vehicle that we were looking at in testing the test and running our tests on the test vehicle. This is an analysis of the states that were on there, and this is what we were using to develop the understanding of what these states
It's a
meant.
key.
And so it's,
Cool.
will be a shorter way to describe that. More
It's a
simple
key.
way to describe that.
It's an analysis of the state machine,
Would
of
be,
the state vehicle states.
okay. It would be, this would represent some of the research that you and your team.
That is research. Yeah, that's a research document.
At this time, state would move exhibit
It's the key.
449
No objection.
into.
Submitted.
Okay.
All right. And we talked about call logs, and you found some call logs, correct?
Yes,
On this vehicle.
Ooh.
And where did those call logs come from again?
they were stored within the infotainment system
And where did the infotainment system get them?
from an attached phone.
Okay. All right. And I'm going to show you what's been marked as states 446. And let me see if you recognize that document and where it's from.
Is that
Yes,
the
these were call
logs?
logs that we recovered off the infotainment system.
Okay. And
Great.
those are two specific calls, correct?
That's correct.
All right. And what are the date and time of those two calls?
The first one,
Oh,
June 7th, 2021 at 22:06:14,
And what was the number dialed on that one?
9111.
Okay, 3 ones. Okay.
And then another one shortly thereafter at 22:06:18, a couple seconds later, for just 911.
And
Still in
in
the
your
car?
research and testing,
still in the car when he
can you
called 911?
determine of when these call logs would have been pulled off the phone that made these calls?
No, at some point, the system would have downloaded that information from the phone. I don't know what time that occurred.
Okay, all right. And at this time, I would move exhibit 446.
He called 911 from the car.
Submitted.
All right.
Do we know if the car's moving?
All right.
So if
And
he
I'm
was
gonna
in the
show
car, was he
you
at home?
what I believe is our last
That's
document.
interesting.
And this is exhibit 442.
That's very
And I'm
interesting.
going to ask if you recognize this document.
If he wasn't back yet and called 911, that's a very,
Yes.
very different case this afternoon.
I've titled this document the 2021 Chevy Suburban log file excerpts from June 7th, 2021.
All right. And is this a condensed version of data from that original, that CD that we?
A summary?
showed you
It's a
minute
summary.
ago?
It's a summary.
Okay. And what is that condensed to? Why did you condense it to that particular data for this particular printout?
This spreadsheet was the data that our parsing tool was looking for amongst all the log files and extracting those out.
We talked about this a minute ago.
Remember, we don't hear the dogs
but-
until the second 911 call.
If you're trying to determine
After
when
it's
this vehicle
transferred.
moved, you identified a key indicator. When the vehicle may have possibly moved, you identified a key indicator in that data that would indicate to you, in your opinion, that the vehicle could have possibly been moving, correct?
That's correct. In or out of park.
Okay. And when you produced that report, did you color code certain columns?
Yes, I hand colored the columns on here that indicated those for clarity.
And I think I meant to say rows because they're
They're
horizontal,
rows,
correct?
yes.
My apologies. And you color coded certain ones, right?
That's correct.
Okay. At this time, state that move to enter exhibit 442. No?
No objection.
It's admitted.
We're going to publish this.
No, the call could have downloaded the logs, but right now they are implying
the
that the
computer,
car was
please.
moving and
Yeah,
that the
my
only
apologies.
call logs were 911. The defense is going to have to come around to explain that it could have just downloaded the call log later. But if the car is moving at 10:06, it's different because the vehicle was not in park.
Okay.
So they've got to present this clearly.
So we'll keep moving. I'm going to need that exhibit back, please. And we're going to switch to Elmo. Once we get the computer going, it'll give a better view, but for the moment, we'll look at the Elmo.
It said out of park. We're going to need more evidence. He was driving down to get his gun, but that was later in the 911 call. This was at the very beginning of the 911 call. 911 connected at 10:06.
So let's just start at the top. And I think you read the title, it's 2021 Chevy Suburban log files, correct?
That's correct.
All right. And then we see a row below that that looks like descriptors, correct?
Correct.
All right. Well, let's just start on the left. Let's explain what these mean. And we see on the
But
far
if it
left.
downloaded
says
the log,
line
why not
and
all
then
the other
number
calls?
Symbol or hashtag. What does
Why
that
not the
mean?
calls before that?
Okay, I'm going to explain that using the next column over file name first. The file name indicates the particular log file that the data was recovered from. There was numbered log files in the system. And for this date, there were 2 different log files that contain this data. And the line number indicates the physical or the actual line number starting from 1 at the top that data was located on.
Okay. And then we see the date next to that. And what is that again? Specifically the date and time?
That is the timestamp of the actual log entry.
All right. Let's switch to the computer, please. And this will make this a little bit easier to see, hopefully. Oh, if I can get to.
There were 73 calls on June 7th. If they only reported the 911 calls, then
I think
that's
I
the
meant to talk.
prosecution being shady. But
All right.
did somebody
So,
delete
is that-
the others
is
out of the
that
call
a little
log?
For you to see? Mr.
I can
Falkofske?
see it fine.
Okay. All right. It looks like somehow I managed to mess up the spreadsheet. My apologies. All right. So event type. What does event type mean?
Basically, the event type
This should
is
be a time log of what's happening.
part of the log entry that describes
Hopefully.
what sort of event is going on. It describes the event.
Okay. Event description. What does that mean?
It's just a longer, more verbose version of the event type.
An event
More
value,
fulsome?
What does that mean?
That is the actual value of the event rather than this is the event and this is what its value is.
Okay. When you say value, what do you mean by that?
It can be a 1, a 0, a true, a false, or a textual indicator of the system state.
All right. And you say 1 or 0, true or false. You mentioned a while ago that data is always binary, right?
Yes,
And binary is always 1 or 0, correct?
in case a lot of these are 1 and 0.
Okay. And that's how data is typically stored in computer systems, correct?
Typically, yeah.
Okay. All right. So finally, on the far right, it says raw line from service log file. What does that mean?
That is the actual line from the file copied verbatim.
Okay. And so that's the actual data log that you pulled out of the system.
That is correct.
And it includes a timestamp as well, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so let's just look at the top here. And you said you added in some color coding, correct?
That's correct.
And the top line appears to be red. That's 83, 84, correct?
Yes,
And 86, 76 is also red.
The
correct?
73 calls are on
That's
the
correct.
Verizon
Why-
record.
Why'd you color code those red? What is
Alex's
that?
phone had very
those were
few calls
basically
on the phone.
messages that were showing the system starting up. The computer for the infotainment system initiated a boot
So
sequence.
the car started up
And
at what
Did your
time?
testing identify a number of ways the system on this vehicle could start up?
We observed it starting up with several ways.
Okay.
I don't think we know all the ways it may start up.
Okay, well, what are some of the ways you observed that it could start up?
Just things such as opening the door of the vehicle or getting in the vehicle, turning it on.
Okay. And when we say system startup, we mean the infotainment center.
This is referring to the infotainment center, not the whole vehicle.
Okay, so it's not necessarily we're turning the vehicle on every time we see a red color there.
That's correct. Just the infotainment
It
system.
could be someone just opening the door, correct?
Yep.
And that
I need to go
represents,
back and look, but
in
a
some
lot of you have
cases where
said,
the screen
he
in that
said
car
this is the
just kinda
first time
lights
he's
up
ever
if the
caught
door opens
encryption.
or
So
for another reason, correct?
there are questions
That would
about
be an
that.
indicator, yes.
They didn't
And are
follow
there,
up though.
certain occasions where
How
the
many has he
system can kind
done
of start up on
of
its own?
these?
There's some unexplained times when the system seems to initiate a boot for no apparent reason. It's theoretical on what the car is doing at that point.
Okay. All right. And then below that, at line 9142 and 9144, it looks like you color coded those two lines as blue, correct?
That's correct.
The phone calls
All
on
right, and
Alex's
what-
phone were
Why did you
deleted
color code those
on
lines
the
as blue?
physical phone.
Those indicated these vehicle parked
It's
message
in my
that
summary
we
from
found
last
to
week on
be
QuickBets.
very useful in determining potentially the car moving.
Okay. And this is something that you found in your testing and analysis, correct?
That's correct.
That was reliable?
This is a reliable message.
All right. And reliably means what?
Reliably tells you whether the car was shifted into park or shifted out of park.
Okay. All right. And looks like lines 9142 and 9144 both occurred at 12/21/43 on June 7th, 2021. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. And is that local time?
That is local time.
All right. And what does that mean? What does vehicle parked true mean?
Vehicle park true means the shift lever of the vehicle was placed into the park position.
Okay. So the vehicle was shifted into.
I will be looking forward to
correct.
seeing this
And, but I
exhibit
see it
later today.
looks like the
when it's
exact same
published.
message on both lines, correct?
That's correct.
Why do we have the exact same message on both lines?
If you take a look, scroll to the right on the one that's showing the raw values,
I want
you'll
to
see
see this
that the
exhibit
messages
very much.
are not identical. They're from two pieces of the subsystem reporting the same event.
Okay, so this particular log and maybe some other ones get recorded in different places in this infotainment center.
There's a lot of duplication of messages.
I mean, it's car
And
duplication
they
seems
don't,
good.
if they had the same timestamp, how would you interpret that if you see duplicate messages with the exact same timestamp?
I would typically consider that just a single event.
I know Rob is in the chat,
Okay,
the chat saying
and
he's confused.
so
We're going to need this.
Let's look down below
chart.
that, and I see
It'll be available later today.
multiple things happening, and I'm highlighting it.
I do have a flight.
On
I have to
lines
leave
9148
shortly.
to 9156 at 12:33 and
I'm going to try to get to some super chats, but
23
just know I've
seconds.
got to
And I
leave
see a number
shortly.
of things happen
Or I
there
might not
at
get
the
to them
same
if they come in.
timestamp, correct?
That's correct.
And in your analysis, in your opinion, when you see a group of messages happening at the same time, what's the best way to interpret that information?
You have to kind of take a look at them as an aggregate.
Okay. And so you kind of look at all these messages as a whole to interpret what they mean, correct?
That's correct.
Rather than each one individually.
That's correct.
Okay. So let's look at it.
This is
Looking at lines
foundational.
9148 and all those lines that are timestamped identically, which goes down to line 9159, what does that group of messages, in your opinion, mean was happening on this vehicle at that time on June 7th of 2021?
It looked like the infotainment computer was beginning a power down sequence.
Okay. Okay, and we go down to
I hope there's a better
1242.
summary exhibit than this chart.
and
This chart
We see a
also
few
seems
lines in
confusing.
9167, 9459, and 9716. We see a few of those red color-coded lines, correct?
That's correct.
All right. And again, what does that mean? Why are those coded that way?
The infotainment system initiated a boot up sequence starting up.
But any number of reasons of why that would have potentially booted up at that time.
Yeah, it could be a number of reasons.
All right. But then at 9954 and 9956, we see some blue color-coded messages, correct?
That's correct.
All right. And what do those mean? It says vehicle park false. What does that mean?
Vehicle parked false means this car was shifted out of park.
Okay. And that's at what time?
18/23/57
All right. Help us out. What's
The
that? in civilian
Verizon
time?
witness
6:23,
provided those
57.
calls.
PM
p.m.
on what day?
on June 7th, 2021.
And again, we see two identical messages, correct?
Yes.
But
So
you would
the car
interpret that
was
as one event,
not in
correct?
park.
Yes.
And what is that event again?
It's a vehicle taken out of park.
Okay. Okay, and we see a few things happen. Looks like 1853 and 1911. Some of those red color coded. What's your interpretation for lines? Looks like
I hope they have a better summary
396
of
and
this.
984 on June 7th there. What's going on in those lines?
It's another infotainment system boot up, startup sequence.
Okay. And then we see another red event at 2103:44, correct?
Yes,
And what is that?
another boot up sequence.
Okay. And from any number of reasons, correct?
Correct.
Could be if someone just opened the car door, correct?
Yes.
And then we see a group of messages. Looks like a few at 2104:05, and then a few at 2104:18. Quite a few more at 2104:18, and that's 9:04 p.m. Correct?
That is correct.
All right. And that group of messages at 9:04:18 p.m. What in the aggregate? What is that telling you is going on with this vehicle at that time?
One moment.
If it's too
I have
confusing
the
for their
time
chart,
Yeah, at the 210418, those ones looked like the system was, but prior to that, it seemed to be shutting down and then it stopped and started coming back up.
Okay. And so it seems to be starting up around 2104:18, correct?
Yes,
And that'd be consistent with that red coded message we saw a second ago, correct?
yes,
And it's also consistent with the red coded message at line 1281 at 2105:56, correct?
what do you mean by consistent with that message?
I'm sorry. Take a look at line
I hope
1281.
they have
See
a
that?
summary
Yes, I see
timeline of
1281.
this.
That's the next system startup message.
Okay. And what time is that again?
210556.
All right. And I'm going to do my best and I'll try to stop you. Let's try to talk in local time.
Okay,
Or
yeah.
civilian time, excuse me.
I'll start processing it that way.
And I make that mistake too. What time is that in civilian time?
That would be 9:05:56
PM
PM
on June 7th?
on June 7th,
27th? Okay.
2021.
Okay, and then below
And?
that, we see a group of messages starting at line 1557. And they have an identical time state of what?
9:06 and 44 seconds
Okay. PM?
PM.
All right. And what is that group of messages telling you at that time?
That looks like the vehicle system is continuing its power up process.
Okay. All right. And then we see a series of messages that all occur within 2 or 3 seconds, starting at line 1591 at 9:06:48 p.m. And then continuing on through 9:06:49 p.m. And quite a few at 9:06:49 p.m. and then into 9:06:50 p.m. And that's lines roughly 1628 down to 1654. What does that group of messages tell you is occurring?
So at that point, part way through those message sets, it actually has an engine running event. So the car has been turned on.
Okay, so in your opinion, the vehicle is running at approximately 9:06:49 to 9:06:50 p.m.?
Yes,
Okay, on June 7th?
yes.
This is getting
Right,
to
and then we see
when Alec
at
left
line
to go see his
1670
mom
and
and tying that
1672.
timeline together.
It looks like another couple of blue colored messages, correct?
Yes.
And again, what are those blue colored messages? What do they indicate to you?
The vehicle park message.
All right, and it says vehicle parked false. What does that mean?
The vehicle was taken out of park.
Okay, the vehicle was taken out of park at 9:06 and 50 seconds, correct? PM?
Correct.
Okay. On June 7th, correct?
Correct.
All right, and if we look at it on line 1672, the timestamp has a slightly different color stamp. I don't know if is that viewable on your screen? Yeah. It looks like it's colored more green, correct?
That is correct.
Why did you color that particular block green?
I hope there's more of a
at line
summary.
1672.
I was highlighting events where you could see where the vehicle was taken out of park, and it looks like it was continually used and then put back into park.
Okay. And so, first of all, those two lines at 1670 and 1672, they they represent the same event?
They are the same event.
Okay. And that's the vehicle taken out of park, correct?
That's correct.
And you color coded that green because you wanted to find when the vehicle is put back into park, correct?
Correct. I want to find, yes,
Okay. Because you, in your opinion and your analysis, you've determined that that message is pretty reliable and something we can rely upon to make a determination of when that vehicle could have been.
That's so
moved,
compound.
correct.
correct? Okay, so 9:06:50 PM, the vehicle is taken out of park. And then let's go down the line, 1904. And we see another green stamp embedded in a blue line. Do you see that, sir?
Yes.
And what does that mean to you?
Well, it was the next event where the vehicle went back into park
Okay.
At what time?
So at what time is that?
at 9:22 and 45 seconds PM.
Vehicle's put back into park, correct?
That's correct.
All right.
That's consistent with driving to his
And
mom's.
in your opinion,
Between
could the
9:06
vehicle have been
and
moving between
9:22.
those two times?
Yes, it could have. I have no evidence of that.
Okay. All right. But the vehicle's out of park for that.
It is out of park.
Okay. And that's something, in your opinion, we can rely upon, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And roughly, I'm not going to ask you for exact seconds, roughly how much
Y'all,
time
this
passes
cuts both ways.
between the vehicle taking out of park at line 1672 and put back into park at line
This
1904?
cuts both ways to him
Approximately
going to his
16
mom's.
minutes.
So it cuts both ways with him going to his mom's, but it will narrow the time he's at his mom's to be more consistent, I think, with the 15, 20 minutes. But yes, this backs up when he said he
I'm
left
gonna
to go to his
scroll
mom's.
down.
This absolutely aligns with that.
And I'm scrolled down to
Which
line
cuts both ways.
3059 and 3061.
So 9:06 to 9:22
And I see
drives
some
to
more
mom's.
green colored blocks here, correct?
Yes.
All right. And what are those blocks? What information is contained in those blocks? What messages?
Again, it's the vehicle in or out of park messages.
Okay. And so, and what time is that? Those two messages at 3061?
3061 shows 9:43:05
PM?
PM,
And that's June 7th,
June
correct?
7th, 2021.
And
And
what-
then
And I'm sorry to interrupt you, but at that particular event, what happens with the vehicle?
the vehicle goes out of park.
Okay. And then the next
So
line
he's
below
at-
that.
he's
what's
there from
the time on
9:22 to
that?
9:43.
The date time on that?
9:43 and 59 seconds, June 7th, 2021. That's PM.
Okay. And what happens with the vehicle?
It goes back into park.
Okay. And so roughly how much time passed between those two events?
It looks like just under a minute.
Yeah, so
And you
20
can't tell
minutes
us
at
whether the vehicle
mom's.
actually moved during that time, correct?
No.
All right. All you can tell us was it was out of park for a little under a minute.
Yes.
Yeah, so 20 minutes at mom's, like Shelley
All
said,
right. And
from
not to
9:22
put
to
you on the spot,
9:43.
we'll go back up and look real quick.
Right about
So
there.
that's at 9:43:05 PM, correct?
Correct.
Let's
It
go
helps so
back
much when
and
you
look
skip
at the
around,
previous
counsel.
vehicle parked,
We're
at
already struggling with our notebooks.
9:22:45 PM, and that's line 1904. That's when the vehicle had been placed in the park, correct?
That's correct.
All right, and let's just do some rough math. Do you have a
Ah.
pen? You can write it down if you need to. 9:22:45, the vehicle's in park.
9:43:05.
Or excuse me, 9:43:05, the vehicle
out
is
of
now
park.
back out of park, correct?
That's correct.
Roughly how much time passes between those two events?
Approximately 21 minutes.
That is consistent. It's not consistent with,
All right. and
tell
so
them
the
I was here
vehicle
30 to 40
is
minutes.
out of park
It's
for
not
about a
consistent
minute
with that.
at lines 3061 and 3079. And then let's scroll down to line 3096 and 3310. What happens with the vehicle there?
The vehicle goes out of park
Okay, at what time?
at 9:44:54 seconds on June 7th, 2021. That's PM.
Okay. And then the next event below that, what occurs there?
Next event is the vehicle goes back into park at, that would be 10 o'clock and 36 seconds
Okay.
on June 7th, 2021 PM.
And those are color-coded green because they kind of represent a matching pair, correct?
That's correct.
Of when it went out and when it went back into park, correct?
That's correct.
All right. And roughly, how much time passes between those two events at 9:44 and 10 o'clock of the night of June 7th?
Approximately 16 minutes.
Okay. All right. And then let's go down to lines 3327 and 3328. And those are two more green colored events that represent that matching pair, correct?
That's correct.
Vehicle out of park and the vehicle in park, correct?
That's correct.
All right. And what are the times associated with those two events?
The vehicle goes out of park at 10:01 and 17 seconds on June 7th, 2021. It's PM. And it goes back into park at 10:01, 29 seconds on June 7th, 2021
Okay.
PM.
And roughly speaking, how many
911's
seconds is
called
that?
at 10:06,
About 12 seconds.
but he says he goes to the house and then goes up to the kennels. And this might be
Okay, let's
consistent
go
with going to the house and
just a
then
few
going up
seconds
to the
later,
kennels.
lines 3336 and 3340. And we see another matching pair of these green messages, correct?
That's correct.
Out of park and then back into park, correct?
That's correct.
And what are the two times on that particular event?
The vehicle goes out of park at 10:01 and 30 seconds on June 7th, 2021. That's PM. And it goes back into park at 10:01 and 43 seconds, June 7th.
That's fast.
So maybe I can do the math this time. It's roughly about 13 seconds it's out of park.
That's correct.
Okay, and we see a whole bunch of messages again, that group of messages starting at 22:04:44 and kind of going on until 10:04:44 p.m. and 10:04:47 p.m. We see another group of messages. What does that group of messages generally indicate to you in the aggregate? And that's this group I'll highlight.
3 to 2, didn't run false. It looks like the system is powering down.
Okay.
It's going to take a while to synthesize all of this, but I want
Okay,
to
and
see
then we
this
get
chart,
down
and I hope
to,
there's a summary chart and that this
Lines
spreadsheet is not the summary chart.
3464.
We need the timing,
And that shows
but this doesn't give a lot of time to check in
another
the house.
green color-coded pair of messages, correct?
That's correct.
And again, goes out of park and back into park, correct?
That's correct.
And what are the two times associated with those two messages at 3664 and 3682?
Yes.
I'm sorry, what
What's
are
the
those
question?
times?
What's the
Oh,
question?
what are the times? 10:04 and 49, it goes out of park. That's PM on June 7th, 2021. And it goes back into park at 10:05, 55 seconds PM, June 7th, 2021.
And that's roughly more than a minute, correct?
That's correct.
Well,
And then
from
let's go down
10:01 to 10:04, he could be checking the
3490
house.
And
Maybe.
3504. And we see another matching pair in out of park and then into park, correct?
That's correct.
And what are the times associated with those two?
The vehicle goes out of park at 10:11 and 45 seconds on June 7th, 2021 PM. And then it goes back into park at 10:12 and 38 seconds PM, June 7th, 2021.
Okay. All right. And that's roughly just under a minute or so?
That's correct.
I missed that one.
And we're almost. to
Was
the
that
end.
10:06?
Okay. And then,
Chad, you're saying it doesn't take 4 minutes to shout for your family and see that the
we
house is still
see
dark? No, it doesn't.
another message. So first of all, we see some messages that are blue colored at 3506 through 3515. And why are those blue coded instead of green coded for you?
Those are more vehicle park messages, but they appear to be with the, basically duplications of the
Thanks, Jack.
existing ones.
So that's just duplicate information,
10,
correct?
11, and 10,
That's
12
correct.
could be going
And then
back down to the
finally,
house to get
at
the gun and back up because he's
Line
on the
3521,
phone.
we see the vehicle, what happens with the vehicle at that line?
Okay, it goes out of park at
'Cause now we've gotta line this up with the
10:13 and
911
39
calls.
seconds PM on June 7th, 2021.
Did you find a matching kind of pair as we've talked about for where the vehicle goes back in the park?
No.
After that? All right,
No log message was present for that.
okay. Can you explain why that log message may not be present?
We found during the testing of our test vehicle
Ooh.
that there are times when the system decides to temporarily stop recording message. The reason is not clear.
Okay. But you do see it come out of park at 10:13:39, correct?
That's correct.
All right.
Okay.
Now, and just to reiterate this, you're just telling us when this vehicle's in and out of park, correct?
That's correct.
Because that's the most reliable piece of information you've been able to deem from this data, correct?
That's correct.
And you can't tell us necessarily where the vehicle's moving, correct?
That's correct.
And you can't tell us if it's moving, or if you see it go out of park, who's shifting the actual gear knob, can you?
No, we don't know who's in the car.
And all you can look at is this particular data, correct?
That's correct.
All right.
All right, y'all, I've got just another moment or two. So I'm going to look at some of the super chats where they're pausing. It's an interesting timeline. And I think, again, like everything, this is going to cut both ways. But it does confirm that Shelley
So
was
it's clear,
correct.
you've determined
15, 20
you're
minutes.
interpreting this data
That's where it's
because
at.
you use a test vehicle to see when you see these messages, correct?
That's correct.
All right. And that's why you're giving us these opinions today, correct? From
That's
your
correct.
testing. All right. And when you're
Ginty
using your
props,
test
I need to go back
vehicle,
and
if
listen.
you
I
took
need
the
to go back and
vehicle-
listen to the 911 call. That would be interesting. But then he
Uh,
would say that he's on the phone with
If you
911
took
after
the
he checked
vehicle
the
out
house.
and drove
But
it,
why be back in the car?
took it out of park,
We'll
drove
see.
it, and then put it back in the park, would you find that exact same matching pair of in and out of park messages we just talked about? correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you weren't able to
Liquid?
determine any other data that would reliably tell you if it was moving or not, correct?
That's correct.
All right. But, so if the vehicle's driving and you see that, you would see that identical pair of messages like we just talked about.
Yes.
And however, if the car's just stopped and someone shifts it out of park and just sits there with their foot on the brake, and then sometime later puts it back into park, would you see that same matching pair of in park, out of park message and back in the park message?
Yes.
I need
You
to
would.
see the timeline visually to see if we have around when we think Maggie's phone could have been ditched.
For
It
mistake.
Could have been on the way back, because on the way back makes sense in that
Right at the
10:01,
fence.
that 10:01 time or that 10:04 time, because her phone was on the side of the road where Alec would be coming back to Moselle, not going towards Moselle, which will be interesting. We're just about getting to cross-examination, and I have been told that Law and Lumber has heard you in the chat and is going to be starting a stream. So as we are shifting over, as I am leaving for my flight and saying thank you for being law nerds, y'all pestered Rob, and then I did, and he said he would stream the rest of this witness. So thank you for being here. While we are taking a stand break, Rob is over on Law and Lumber. Let me see if I can get the link into the chat, because I don't. I'm trying to copy it. Rob, I'm trying. I will grab a link and I will put it in the chat. We will put a link in the chat, but Law and Lumber is his channel. We're going to put that in the chat. Chat, you guys wanted to hear from Rob? Rob said, yes, Law Nerds, I have a shit ton of work to do, but what I'm going to do is be here for you. Be here for you. So there are lots of attorneys streaming around the interwebs and law and crime. I will be back with you tomorrow morning. I'm going to go hop on a plane. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being Law Nerds. I apologize for the super chats I didn't get to. I will be streaming tomorrow. It will be early where I'm at, but I will be streaming tomorrow. So y'all are in good hands around the interwebs. And I will see you soon. Thank you for being Law Nerds. All right, you guys, I got to go. We're going to roll the outro. The judge is calling it to order. I'll see you soon. Enjoy Cross. You can find all the Law Nerd goodies at lawnerdshop.com. Connect with me on social media at the Emily D. Baker. And don't forget to check out my podcasts, The Emily Show, and the new podcast, Quick Bits, summarizing everything I talk about on my Tuesday and Thursday live streams. You know, when you only have time for just the quick bits.